Hi guys, welcome to my how-to video on time-lapse photography and videoing. So what I'm going to do is take you through the different time-lapse techniques that I use, some of the pros and cons of each one, and some of the techniques that I use when I'm editing in order to get them looking the way that they do, and what I tend to find is best for whatever situation. So let's get into this. Let me get Final Cut Pro started up, and then I'll take you through some of the techniques I've been using. Let me just import some of my other media in here so I can just take you through. So importing them, you see there's a duration of 10 seconds for each image is what it wants to do. So look and see when I actually bring it in. The duration is 10-second files. A new project. Initial time-lapse mode. Custom settings, which is 4K. And yeah, it's about 25p. Let me grab all these. Okay, yeah. Modify. Change duration. Set to 1 pinter. That should now set the duration of every single one to 1. You can see that it has set them all to be single frames. And put on the timeline. So that now is got everything on the timeline. And if we play that back, you can see traditional time-lapse style footage. Because something that happened whilst I was filming this is that there was a incident of road rage that happened. Let me zoom in a little bit on this so you can see these two guys here are the ones that had a little bit of a spat. There was lots of beeping of horns and guys stopping and reversing, and the other guy trying to get around. The guy even gets out and tries to go after him, and then goes racing off, chasing after him. When you're watching this back, you're not even going to notice it. There it goes. It's almost like the traffic's just gone to a standstill and stopped. So obviously every 2 seconds there's a bit of a gap in between those things. So this was how I originally did it. It's good if you are recording something, say like the intro, but that was actually every minute that we took a frame to combine that together. So you get the kind of the jumping around, the bouncing around. It can simulate what you get here. The cats bounce when you play back. You can kind of roughly follow some of the cars and the vehicles in it, but it is very very quick and fast. Okay, so that's your traditional kind of time lapse. Now getting into 4K time lapse footage. So you can see this 4K 25 frames a second. And this was just, it's a nice day. There were like cloud formations and things like that. And if I scroll through the footage here, you can see it. But this particular file itself, it's let me go to it and find it. So it's 61 gig. So that was pretty much the entire memory card there in the camera. It's like 64 gig memory card. That was like 64 gig. File. A new project for this one, and This is 4K time-lapse. It's 4K, 25 frames a second, I said, and that is the project. If I bring this whole thing in, it comes in, it's 1 hour 26 minutes. If you do a traditional speeding up, you know, you just want to change the speed of the clip, you can select your clip, select the speed, and you can play fast 2 times, 4 times, 8 times, 20 times, or you can do custom. Most of mine are either 16 times or 8 times, I think. In this particular one I did 16 times, so it's what, 600 speed up in size. That brings it down to 5 minutes in total duration. If you're looking at sections within here, you know, something that I find is interesting to look at is actually the road down at the bottom. So to 100% and actually bring us down here where we can see vehicles and things like that. You can see vehicles jump, 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 jump as you speeds up. It just throws away the frames in between. So the way I get around this is I would have my normal speed clip, which has everything in it, you know, all the frames there, and as you can see I'm going to do a 16 times speed up. So I will make a copy of the clip and paste. I then mute that version, bring it over the top, and let's go back to the beginning and I'll zoom in, and here's what I do. Bring it in and I move it forward 1 frame, and I change the blending mode. Let's take the compositing blending mode to lighten. Now the lighten mode is like a max. It takes the highest value. So as you can see here on this particular frame, we've got this car down here, and if I move on to the next frame, that car is now in the lorry and everything. You can see it's using the frame before and the current frame to blend those two together, and depending on the speed of the clip that you're doing, it's how many times you do it. So I'm going to copy the lightened blended version and paste it in, and it pastes in over the top. So you zoom in to the beginning, you can see where it's popped that frame in there, and what we need to do with that is take it forward 2 frames. And so we're doing a 16 times thing on this, so I need 16 frames all blended together in order to, when it skips a frame, skips a frame, skips a frame, it's actually bringing in those 15 frames, those 15 frames, those 15 frames. You know, so that's the general technique that I use. Obviously once you've got those two, I can copy those two, I can go forward to the frame that I want and I can paste them, and if I jump back here to the front, you can see it's pasted them up above here, and there they are, those things, and there we've got 4 now, which I can then copy and I can move to the frame and paste. So now we're up to 8 plus the original. So 8 plus the original, and yeah, and just copy all of them, 4 of them, paste, and then what I need to do is take this last one, delete it. because we have our original frame and now our 15 copies. If we jump back to the beginning, you should be able to count these back. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, back to 0. So now when we look at this frame, you can see we have all of those in between frames kind of blended together to give us more of a long exposure. I mean, there's little gaps in between them, but still it's much better than it was. And what we do with this is we select everything and we create a compound clip. So I can right click on this, new compound clip, for time-lapse clip, blended. Okay, then we take our compound clip, which now, as you can see with this, has the blending happening in it. You know, there's our first frame, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, see them all blending together there until we get our 15, 16 frames blended. And what we're going to do now is we speed this up to our custom speed. And when we look now, and the first frame is going to be our still first frame, because that's what it does, you need to crop off the first frame. Our second frame is the blend of all of them together. Next frame is the next blend. So you can see it does the time lapse, but it's different from the other speeding up of the clip. Like if I were to bring in the original clip again, pop it afterwards and do the speed. Oh. 1600, and bring it in. You can see the difference there between the frames. Very much like a traditional time lapse, missing frame, missing frame, missing frame, compared to what I've done, which is blending those. Now I use the same technique when I'm doing the lightning, which is like this shot here, but let me do a new project for this. File, new project. This one is actually in HD 1080p. We're going to set the project rate 25 frames a second because that's what we want as our output. Okay, and I'll bring our footage in. Now what I normally do is I'd slow this footage down so that we get all the frames, because as you can see with this, if I go to the information about this clip, it says it's 60p, but it was shot 100p, 100 frames a second. In order to get it back to the 100 frames a second in a 25 frame second project, you need to slow it down by 4 from the thunder when it comes shortly afterwards. So some lightning there, and you can see how currently it flashes on 2 or 3 frames and then it's gone. Now when you do your time-lapse speed up and it drops frames, you might miss that lightning struck completely. It'll just be gone. It wouldn't appear in there. But shooting at the 100 frames a second allows me to go in here and there. There's 2 ways you do this. I can do it to the speed that I know it was recorded at, which is I can tell it to slow it down to 25%, or I can actually use automatic speed, which will look at the metadata, which says it's 100 frames a second, and it will slow it down to 25%. So now, if I were to find roughly that same place with the lightning we were just looking at, right, you can see how there's 1, 2, 3, you know, there's lots more frames of this blending on and off, and you can see how actually I'm switching on and off several times, and we've got a big frame like that was potentially being thrown away and cast out. So what happens is when we do this and we blend it all together and we get all our frames together, you end up actually being able to pull through, because you're using the lightning effect, that it brings all those elements through, blends them all together, and gives you a nice thing when you speed it up, that you don't actually lose any of the lightning strikes that can happen if you're shooting at 25p in 4K. You just have a resolution hit, so you can only work at HD. But I think being able to actually see the lightning strikes at HD is much better than completely missing a lightning strike in 4K. I've slowed this down. I could have pitched it, so I'll copy it and go back to the beginning, and actually go to the end the first time usually, and paste, because it doesn't like stacking. Sometimes it throws it on the front of it, and we can bring it up over the top. Turn our volume off, because we don't need more volume on our stacked layers, otherwise you start getting all the sound layering up, which you don't particularly need. And remember, into compositing mode, blending mode, lighten, and copy it and zoom into this area, so we'll lighten it. Move on a frame, paste, go back, as I did, copy the two, move forward a frame, and paste, so that it puts it in above. Back again, front. So that's with all four. That's with four copied. Obviously slowed it down 25%, so if I blended those together, that would give us back to 100%. I could then take that compound clip and work, but I figured it would be better to actually do everything in one big hit, just to see if it gave me better quality. So what I'm going to do is I'll keep going with this for now. So copy it there on a frame and paste. So we're now up to 8 frames. Yeah, let me see, the first one is actually aligned with the first one, so I need to move all of these actually on a frame. So got everything selected, I just nudge everything forward a frame and copy all of these, so I'm just copying the lightened versions. Step forward a frame and we paste. And back to the beginning. One frame, and we need to select our clip. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And there we are. So we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Select copy them and paste. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21, 22, 25, 26, 27, 29, 30, 32. Now 32 individual frames, and for some reason we have, you can see there's an error. Correct in, so we're going forward, going forward, going forward, going forward, going forward, and then these ones have all come through one frame. So we take them, push them to one forward a frame. It should have them all stacked nicely. Okay, there we are. So they're all stacked like that. If I go to the top, let's have a look and see. Go to the first there. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 14. You can see they're from all frames. 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. So we have 32 individual frames. So we take them all again. Copy, forward the frame, and paste. And that is now 64 individual frames plus the original. So we drop off our one. So that's our 63 unique layers. And what we do is we just select all of these, and we create our compound clip. Frames per second clip. And it would all slow down. And then we have 100 frames a second compound clip, which we then adjust the speed of, custom, and obviously we're going from slowed down to 16 times original speed. So that's 16 times 4, which gives us our 16, 32, 64. Bringing that in, I'll bring in the original clip, and this one I'm not going to adjust the frames per second back down to normal. I'm going to adjust the speed of this to 16 times speed, and it does have the preserve pitch setting in it, but we're immediately going to be using it for the sound. If I bring that and pop it underneath, and obviously you can kind of see it's doing something, but it's difficult to see the effects of this because it's actually it's doing a lot of calculating behind the scenes. So thank you for joining me. That's the way that I do it. That's the tutorial. One other thing that I wanted to talk about was shooting 100 frames a second as well. I have some test footage here, so let me do a new project for you here, and this is just a quality thing. So 1080p, 25 frames a second. Okay, so I have some footage here which I bring this through and I have a look at the information on this. This is 1440 by 1080 25i. Okay, and this is, when you watch this back, you can see it's a slow motion footage of just an insect flying around. You see it's 12 seconds in length. It's 4 seconds converted into 12 seconds using the smooth slow record function, which is under there, which is like a higher compression thing. It's like the old way that Sony used to do things. You're limited to 4 seconds of time, and it can be either from when you press the record button or when the 4 seconds before you press the record button. So you can tell it to record it either at the end when you press or start when you press. I tend to do the press at the end and do it in. And then this is one that I shot at 100 frames a second of pretty much the same thing, but I shot this in the other format, 1080p. So you can see here this is 1920 by 1080. It says 60p, but it's actually 100. And if I again put this down to the automatic speed, puts it down to 25%. But what I actually wanted to show you was if we go to 100% zoom on this, and if you look at the quality of this, you can see the compression within this file format. So the edges of the leaves, the fly itself, like through there, you know, very much compressed. And if we go to the footage that was shot 100 frames a second and then slow it down, you can see that detail that's being preserved in there. You know, I mean, just looking at the edges of these leaves really are smooth and clear and nice, and here you can see all the compression artifacts within the darks. So yeah, I was thinking, oh, I've used this mode before, it's a nice mode to use, I'll use it again, but then on using it, it's kind of like, oh, okay, I can see that it's actually causing issues. It'd be much better if I just shoot 100 frames a second rather than 120 frames a second. And well, thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, kind of behind the scenes of how I keep some of the detail and keep some of the things within my things, and some of the thought processes behind shooting, the different ways of shooting time lapse, and you know, the different ways in which I traditionally work whilst shooting them.